You're listening to Commander's Demand with your host, Sports PSP, exclusively on the Grid Network.
Yo, what's up, folks? It's your boy Sports PSP. Welcome to another episode of Commander's Demand. It's a podcast in which I discuss things regarding the Washington Commanders. Yo, folks, words cannot even begin to express how I feel, folks. I mean, last week, that might have been one of, if not one of the greatest days of my life. Because we finally got rid of Daniel Snyder. As I've said, as an owner, not just in the NFL, but in all of sports, I think he is an absolute shit show. I think he's an embarrassment. I think he is an epic disgrace. I think he's somebody that needed to go. It's bad enough that he was incompetent as an owner, but all the off the field issues. Josh Harris, the new owner of the Washington Commanders, he is part owner of the Philadelphia 76ers. He's also the owner of the New Jersey Devils. And I really thought about this. I was speaking to a couple of friends, some of them from work, some of them who I know, who shall remain nameless. And I thought about Josh Harris, particularly with the Philadelphia 76ers. He did get new GMs, new head coaches, and I believe eventually at some point in time, Ron Rivera, the head coach, and Martin Mayhew, the general manager, will be gone. They will be relieved of their duties. And unfortunately for Ron Rivera, it's deja vu all over again, because he was in Carolina. Jerry Richardson, the former owner of the Carolina Panthers, now deceased. He put the team up for sale. I think it was Sports Illustrated that did an article highlighting his history of racism as well as sexual misconduct. And then he put the team up for sale. And then David Tepper, now the current owner of the Carolina Panthers, comes in. And Ron Rivera was gone, and they replaced him with Matt Rule, the former head coach at Baylor. Matt Rule is no longer there anymore. Frank Wright is the head coach. But that's where I see with Ron Rivera. He's moving on. And the reason why I bring up Josh Harris, because he brought in Sam Hinkie, the former GM, president of basketball operations, whatever he was for the Philadelphia 76ers. And he created the trust the process. I can't believe it, folks. And I'm actually going to use this philosophy in order for the Washington Commanders to turn around that franchise. I think it would be beneficial to try the trust the process philosophy. Because what did the Philadelphia 76ers do with the trust the process philosophy? Accumulate draft picks and get really good draft picks. You look at, they got Joel Embiid with the 3rd overall pick in the 2014 draft. Had not been for injuries, Joel Embiid would have been the number 1 overall pick. And then in 2016, you drafted Ben Simmons out of LSU. Even though Ben Simmons didn't turn out to become the player that he was supposed to be, He was supposed to be the second coming of Magic Johnson and LeBron James, but that's a story for another day. The 76ers were able to accumulate draft picks and build something. And I think, unfortunately, and I can't believe I'm saying this. If you're Washington fans, I think we have to take a page of the trust the process. We have to tank in order to get draft picks because what are the chances of us getting Lamar Jackson? Are we really going to get Lamar Jackson? Martin Mayhew, Ron Rivera, they've made it abundantly clear. They're not pursuing Lamar Jackson. They're not going to trade him. So if you're not going to get a quarterback, a top tier quarterback like Lamar Jackson, and not a lot of people believe or are sold on Sam Howell or Jacoby Brissett for the future. And if you're not sure with one of these quarterbacks in this year's draft, maybe Will Levis from Kentucky might be available. I suggest you tank. And this is just me. Speaking of the NFL draft, I wasn't a big advocate of tanking at first, but now I'm convinced. The operative term that I keep thinking to my mind is splash. In Washington, we haven't had too many splashes in a long time. I've talked about in the past what could have been with RG3. Had it not been for injuries, RG3 would have been on his way to having a promising career in the NFL, being the savior of the Washington Commanders. I think for Washington, we have to take a page in the trust the process, which is tanking the entire 2023-2024 season and getting our hands at USC's Caleb Williams, who's the reigning Heisman Trophy winner, or North Carolina's Drake May. Because those are the two top quarterbacks that will come out in the 2024 NFL draft, in my opinion. Those are the two best quarterbacks in the draft class in the 2024 NFL draft. Although it's very premature, but I think that's what Washington should do. We should tank the rest of the season. No team in the NFC East fears us. A lot of people have Dallas winning division. You can make an argument for Philadelphia winning the division again, although it's hard. I don't know when's the last time a team in that division won it back-to-back years. And then you can make an argument for the New York Giants. I mean, they've acquired Darren Waller in a trade. You know, they gave Daniel Jones his money. Now they gave Jalen Hurts his money. And by the way, even though I'm a Commanders fan, and even though he plays for the Eagles, shout outs to Jalen Hurts for getting his money. Very happy for him. I know it sounds weird coming from me as a Commanders fan, but to keep it in context, folks, Jalen Hurts, after Alabama, he went to Oklahoma to play for a year under Lincoln Riley. And anytime when you play for Oklahoma, regardless, I'm going to always give you credit. Shouts out to Jalen Hurts. And also shouts out to his agent, Nicole Lynn. And it also goes to show you, folks, if you give minorities and if you give women an opportunity, watch what they can do. And Lamar, if I'm you, I would consider getting Nicole Lynn as an agent. But again, I'm digressing. Washington has to tank the entire season. And they have to try to get their hands on Caleb Williams. I think this would be the first step in the way for Washington to go. Because Sam Howell, Jacoby Brissett, they're not our future. I think it could be Caleb Williams or Drake May. I like their futures. They're younger. They're brighter. Caleb Williams, if you watch him out of USC, he's a dynamic dual threat quarterback. Just won the Heisman Trophy. And he also played at OU, even though it sounds bitter. But he did play at OU for like a year. He took over for Spencer Rattler. Then the following year, he went to USC. The reason why he went to USC is because he wanted to be reunited with his former teammates. And, of course, his head coach, Lincoln Riley. And, of course, Los Angeles, California, the NIL deals, et cetera, et cetera. I think in order for Washington to take that next step, we have to tank. Tank the rest of the season, try to get our hands on a quarterback for 2024, and then we may have to tank another year to get more and more draft picks. Now, the NFL, my concern is with the NFL, they probably may intervene and they probably may tell Josh Harris, this ain't the NBA. We ain't doing that. We're not going to advocate Roger Goodell ain't gonna lie. He's probably gonna tell Josh Harris, look, this ain't the NBA. I ain't Adam Silver. You're not going to advocate tanking each and every season. Because guess what? Everyone else around the NFL is probably gonna do the same thing. We're not gonna try to have that. It's gonna be bad for business. I can't believe I'm actually saying this, folks. I actually do think that tanking could actually work. I really do believe if we tank, if we lose games, this could work. Also, for the 2023 season, some key players that we should really look at is Antonio Gibson of the Commanders. I think with the new additions with the offensive line in Andrew Willie and in Nick Gates, I think Antonio Gibson will be more productive. I think Bieniemy will do a better job utilizing Antonio Gibson. I'm reading all these reports about Trey Lance, the quarterback from the San Francisco 49ers. There's been a lot of like trade rumors, trade reports about him. Trey Lance, for those who may not know, who the San Francisco 49ers drafted with the 3rd overall pick back in the 2021 NFL draft. Number 1 overall was, of course, Trevor Lawrence, the presumptive choice. 2nd overall was Zach Wilson to the New York Jets. San Francisco traded up They moved up in the draft to take Trey Lance with the 3rd overall pick. It hasn't worked out the past 2 years. Last year, Trey Lance started for only like a couple of games. He got hurt, missed the rest of the season. They had Jimmy Garoppolo. Jimmy Garoppolo played well until he got hurt, and then they went with Brock Purdy. I've said it before, folks, and I've said it again about the quarterback situation. People tell me, Purnell, you're only going to go as far as a quarterback. It's a quarterback era. It's a quarterback league. And too many people at my job or outside of work tell me Sam Howell and Jacoby Brissett are not that dude. So I thought about Trey Lance. And I thought about it very long and hard about possibly Trey Lance as a Commander. Now, Martin Mayhew, Ron Rivera, of course, they're going to say no. They're not going to pursue Trey Lance. If they're not going to pursue Lamar Jackson, what makes you think they're going to pursue Trey Lance? But I think it would be very unique to have a Trey Lance on the team. The reason why he was drafted that high coming out of the draft was because of his tremendous talent, upside, potential, big arm, prototypical size, 6'4", 235, 237. The problem is he hasn't played not enough football. And, 2020, he only played, I think, 1 game. Of course, it was during the pandemic season, so I can't hold that against him. But if I'm Washington and if I'm unsure with my quarterbacks that I have in Sam Howell and Jacoby Brissett, I would strongly consider having Trey Lance on my team. And I thought about this. With the weapons that they have, Scary Terry McLaurin, Jahan Dotson, Antonio Gibson, but Eric Bieniemy. This would not only look good for Trey Lance, this would also look good for Eric Bieniemy. Because Eric Bieniemy, the offensive coordinator, he didn't get a lot of credit or recognition that I thought he should have gotten throughout his time in Kansas City. People just felt like, he was a product of Andy Reid. And he didn't get enough credit for what he did with Patrick Mahomes and Travis Kelce. Imagine if you put Trey Lance with that squad on the Washington Commanders. This would intensify Eric Bieniemy's chances as far as getting a head coaching job. Now again, folks, that's not going to ever happen. I don't see that ever coming to fruition. But I'm just giving you a scenario of what that could be. That would be very intriguing and would definitely help Eric Bieniemy. It will intensify his chances of getting the recognition, the credit, the due that he deserves. And who knows? It could open the door for him as far as getting a head coaching job. So I would like to see that. I would like to see him in Washington. Before I wrap up the episode, folks, I'm reading this report right here from NFL Rookie Watch on Twitter. I see that, according to this tweet, the Washington Commanders are reportedly, quote, very high on Kelee Ringo, the defensive back out of Georgia. Many NFL scouts reportedly believe a position switch for Ringo is, quote, possible, while some believe he can excel at the cornerback position. A few weeks ago, Richard Sherman, that's right, folks, Richard Sherman, the former great cornerback of the Seattle Seahawks, who eventually will be a Hall of Famer, in my opinion, he said that Kelee Ringo, he sees Kelee Ringo as an early Patrick Peterson. Great cornerback who was selected with the 5th overall pick out of Arizona. He was great coming out of LSU. And I saw some of the highlights on Kelee Ringo. Big cornerback, 6'2", 207. And it's a necessity for Washington to have, either at the cornerback position or at O-line. That would be an excellent deal for us to get ourselves some O-line or DB. I mean, this is very heavy on the O-line and DB, and Washington needs to address those issues. So for me, I wouldn't mind it. And of course, Ron Rivera is a defensive-oriented minded guy. And I don't know, for some reason, I'm starting to have this love for Georgia because I've said it before, folks. I wanted Darnell Washington to be drafted to the Commanders, and he plays at Georgia. I mentioned Kelee Ringo. But I think, folks, that's going to be very big if we get Kelee Ringo or any offensive lineman or defensive back. I'm willing to get the best type of talent that we have available. And I'm also reading a tweet from Nick DePaula, who is with ESPN and Boardroom, who covers the footwear industry of the NBA, WNBA, and NIL endorsement deals. I'm reading this tweet. This is going back to April 12th. It is official. NFL Pro Bowler Chase Young has signed with New Balance, becoming the brand's first American football athlete. Young will also become the first NFL ambassador for Rich Paul's New Clutch Athletics by New Balance brand, and works with New Balance to create its first NFL cleat. Happy for Chase Young. I'm glad that he is their first American football athlete, and I'm happy for him. I also hear that he's reported to the off-season program, and I hope this is a big year, and this is going to be a really, really huge year for Chase Young because that 5th-year option. I think if you're Washington, you should pick up the 5th-year option on Chase Young, because you don't want to make the same mistake like the New York Giants did with Daniel Jones. Reason why Daniel Jones was able to get that big time contract with the New York Giants was because the Giants didn't pick up the 5th-year option. So if I'm conservative, if I'm Washington, I have to pick up that 5th-year option. I hope Chase Young is going to show us the Chase Young of old. Because I gotta admit, folks, as a Commanders fan, I get tired of hearing about Michael Parsons. No disrespect to Michael Parsons. I think Michael Parsons is great. But at one point before Michael Parsons, Chase Young was considered that great defensive player who was on his way to becoming that dude. And unfortunately for him, his career has been derailed due to injuries. You know, he only had 1.5 sacks in 9 games before his injury in 2021. I'm glad that he's back with the team, working out with the team. According to Ben Standig of The Athletic, Young was present as all the players reported to Ashburn on Monday for the offseason programs. So I hope for Chase Young, he has a bounce back year. He stays healthy. He shows people the Chase Young of all, makes the Pro Bowl, wins comeback player of the year, and making a strong case for defensive player of the year. Him with Montez Sweat, that young defensive end duo, and we got to figure out what to do with Montez Sweat. But that's a different time for another day. But that's a time for another day. I just hope that Chase Young stays healthy because I think he is a difference maker when he's out on that football field, folks. That's all. Thank you, folks, for listening to the Commander's Demand. It's your boy Sports PSP. Please go check me out. Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, any of my social medias or platforms that I'm on. I will try to come up with as much as more content on Commander's Demand. Also, stay tuned for Thursday, the GRYD Network. We're going to have a live NFL draft, so stay tuned. We're going to have a lot of fun. Just check on the platform. Just check us out, man. Thank you, folks. It's your boy Sports PSP. Hope everyone is enjoying a fantastic day. And of course, folks, God bless.